player taps out more often than you'd expect, and this is no different. He has 2 Blood Baron, an Aetherling, 2 Elspeth, and 4 Jace, all and a Merciless Eviction, all which he can tap out for.
Okay. Gruul Blitz is kind of the new aggro deck on town here. Tom Ross, Brad Nelson, some other people chose to play this deck this weekend. It's kind of like a Boss Sly deck that Tom had kind of introduced, and he actually won an IQ to qualify for this tournament with. Very low land count, 19 lands, a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops, and his splash of green. He's got Burning Emissary, obviously. He's got Skylasher as well, as Shaheen's going to cycle on Azorius Charm. He also has Gore Clan Rampager here, so a really interesting, hyper-aggressive deck he's playing.
Yeah, so Shaheen just started off on lands. He's scrying for Temple Deceit here. One of the things, like I said before, Shaheen pretty much plays Esper in every format. And what I've always noticed different about, as someone else who plays control decks, Shaheen's Esper decks and other control decks tend to be a little bit different in that Shaheen does not typically play counter spells in his deck. For example, his deck right now has 3, 2 Dissolve and 1 Syncopate, and that's probably a high number for him. Usually he just relies on Planeswalkers and Sweepers as his control strategy.
Yeah, he's always tapping out. Most tournaments, and we'll see him doing that in Legacy as he's playing Esper Stoneblade this weekend with Lingering Souls. But right now, for his Esper control deck in Standard, he, as you mentioned, not a lot of counter spells, a lot of tapping out, more Wrath effects than normal. Skylasher and Burning Emissary are going to come into the red zone here. We'll see if Tom is going to keep extending his board. He's going to start by playing a Temple of Abandon, little scry action here. Going to put the top card on the bottom. I want to see if he's going to commit another threat or not, and he's not going to.
Yeah, so Shaheen now reaches 4 mana. He has both Verdict and Jace. My guess is that he'll start out on Jace here. There's a really strong interaction between Planeswalkers and Sweepers in that Planeswalkers create tension and that you need to play more creatures to answer them, so they really work well together. And that's a dynamic that Shaheen is very comfortable with exploiting.
Skylasher's going to come on in here on the end step for Ross. He'll untap, he'll take a draw step, and now the question here is, does he want to attack Jace or does he want to attack the face?
Well, my guess is if he made that play, he's going for the Jace.
Oh, upkeep, a little Titan strength here. So +3/+1 and Scry 1. Bottom ups goes that card.
Yeah, he's going to get to swing, kill the Jace, and put 1 extra damage onto Shaheen.
I think it's interesting, though. Like, does he care about the Jace or does he just want to get the life total as low as he possibly can? I think it's a real decision for him to make because by killing the Jace, he's using a lot of resources, and Jace is being exactly what Jace wants to be, which is a glorified fog.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he spent a full card in Titan Strength on killing this Jace if he chooses to do it. So yeah, the question is, can he go at Shaheen's life total? Especially with the kind of deck Shaheen's playing, he doesn't have access to that much life gain. The question would be whether or not, how confident Tom feels he can play those last points of put those last 7 through if he goes for that attack. You would figure if you leave the Jace alive that you're going to get verdicted.
Well, there goes Jace. So the dust settles. Soorani's at 13. Ross is about to lose his board to the uncounterable Wrath effect. I think. Okay,
he
so
drew another
Jace. So I thought we were going to see a verdict, but just another Planeswalker, a Hallowed Fountain tapped and passing the turn back. So now Ross is in the exact same situation. I think he just drew another Titan Strength. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, he has a Crone Crusader. It's a little. It's late right now. Tom is able to put the Jace. Okay, he puts 1 to Shaheen, 2 to the Jace, and then Lightning Strikes the Jace for lethal.
And now there is the verdict from Shaheen. So there goes all of Ross's board. He'll untap, he'll take a draw. He's got some serious work to do. Now, Crone Crusader can rebuild an army, and there are 2 there's a Crusader and there's a Rakdos Cackling passing the turn back.
And now Soorani hits this land. I was going to say it was going to be great. It's the tap land. Shaheen does have the Elspeth here to stabilize.
You see a Crone Crusader. Heroic mechanic. We'll probably see more of that constructed as we do go here. There's a Legion Loyalist. Battalion Trigger. Azorius Charm is going to show up here. Going to put the Cackler back on top. The last place that thing wants to be. And now Elspeth is going to end up showing up to the party here.
Yeah, well, the Legion Loyalist gives Tom a little bit of reprieve here because if he can get Battalion down, he can swing through these tokens. I think what might be his undoing is the fact that that last card in Soorani's hand is a Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah. So Rakdos Cackler is going to come back into play, Unleashed, so it's a 2/2. Soorani is going to play an island. He's going to start by attacking with these tokens as they're not going to block very well against, as you mentioned, the Legion Loyalist. Elspeth going to tick up. But the big problem here for Ross is that Soorani does have a copy of Sphinx's Revelation in his hand. Ross draws his card. He's got a Dragon Mantle in his hand, which he's going to use to suit up the old Crone Crusader, trigger the Heroic.
That's a really powerful play right now.
Yeah. Not only good in Theros Limited, my man.
That is, whew, I'm watching, that's like a play that you don't normally expect to see, but then more you think about it, that's really strong.
Yeah.
It makes a 1/1, it draws a card, and it's going to deal at least 4 extra damage.
So, into the red zone we go. There's the trigger for the Legion Loyalist, so the tokens cannot block, and Ross is probably just going to put it all into the Crusader, I would imagine. How much is it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8? You could attack for 9 right now.
Or you could put Soorani down to 1. If he had another land, I'm sure we'd see the all-in pump.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a game of chicken going on here if he suspects an Azorius Charm.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't just move in. I don't think he really has much of a choice. There's a Revelation. So this rep's going to be for 4. So this rep's going to go up to 14.
Yeah, right now this attack is for 8. So Tom does not have enough damage, even if he had the Titan Strength, to push more through.
He's going to pump 1 more as well. So now it's going to be for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Soorani's going to go down to 5. There's a forest and pass the turn back.
Yeah, Shaheen's going to need another verdict here.
Yeah, somehow Elspeth no good at this juncture. Oh, there's a detention sphere. That's a pretty big draw. I might just take care of the Legion Loyalist straight up.
Yeah, he can take care of the Legion Loyalist, or yeah, he's going to go ahead and take care of that. Tom still is live to draw another Legion Loyalist.
See Soorani's hand right now? Not really all that great, it looks like to me. I think he's got a Thoughtseize hanging out over there, which is not going to do him any good right now. And a couple of dual lands. You see him kind of shaking his head here. I don't think he's thrilled with the position that he's in.
Yeah, well, what he's going to have to do is plus the Elspeth and just kind of sit on defense until he can make an emblem and swing for lethal. It's a fine game plan and one that might work, but as a control player, you really would hope to have a little more of an insurance policy than that.
So let's see how the Esper control player is going to attack. There's a Godless Shrine into play tapped. And what does Soorani want to do this turn? Organizing those soldiers. How many do you attack with? How many don't you attack with? You know you've got 3 more coming.
Yeah, so he has a virtual 9 of them. The thing is he's not completely incentivized to attack with any of them because next turn he just has the play of Emblem Swing Lethal. So, chipping damage here isn't really very strong. You see he's giving a little bit of a token nod to some damage. He's swinging, looks like 2.
I think he wants to make it so that, he blocks with the appropriate amount of guys and then he can give the rest of them enough, jump in the air to make it lethal.
Right, this means that he needs to have 5 creatures alive to swing in the air, so he can trade away 4. I think he'd count to 4 because if Tom can target a Crone Crusader, that would be what he'd need to block with. So then he'd still have exactly enough to make it lethal.
Legion Loyalist, did you show up to the party? You see Ross analyzing the board state here, saying, what can I do to try to get those last 5 points of damage across?
Yeah, he's gonna need some sort of way to get by. Outside of Legion Loyalist, I haven't seen this deck too much. Does he have anything? Does he have anything else that could work?
Madcap Skills isn't really going to play much of a role here. Titan Strength, Giant Growth, Lightning Strike, Armed and Dangerous, Gorkland Rampager as well. So he's got some very interesting cards here, and there is a Madcap Skills.
So Armed Dangerous. The Dangerous is a lure, though, right?
The Dangerous is a lure.
Okay,
but would it be lethal?
Would it be lethal? Right. That's a whole nother question.
See, 4-mana lure. I'm not quite sure if it would be lethal. You see Madcap Skills is going to go in the Crone Crusader. Heroic Trigger going to get another guy. I don't... 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe he lures the token. So 1.
I think he's
2,
1
3.
short.
I think he would have been 1
it.
short, yeah, if he had Dangerous.
So we see, looks like Shaheen's going to try to just take as little damage as possible, blocking everything.
Going to put some more blockers here, even more blockers here. He's throwing a ton of guys onto that Crone Crusader.
He doesn't. It seems like he could put an extra 1 to make it Titan Strength proof. He could put an extra everything to make it Giant Growth proof.
The question is, can he make it Gorkland Rampager proof?
Right, and that's what he has to be worried about, right, is Gorkland.
That's a card that Ross does have 4 copies of. So there are your blocks. The dust settles. Ross does not have a Gorkland Rampager. Unfortunately for him, he's going to lose his entire board. Elspeth is going to be left over with counters. Ross just passes the turn. See, Soorani is going to draw a Blood Baron, and it's going to take running Lightning Strikes. I'm not even sure that Ross is going to have enough time to do that.
He'd have to have he would take running Lightning Strikes, and the first one would have to be in his hand right now.
Yes. There's a Blood Baron. Elspeth went up. Tokens are in play. Shaheen is basically representing lethal damage right now as Ross is going to untap. He's going to draw, and he's going to pick it up. So Shaheen Soorani is going to win game number 1 over Tom Ross. Esper Control up a game over this brand new Gruul Blitz deck. And we're going to move right along the sideboards here because I want to see exactly what Ross can bring in this particular matchup. I've got his deck list in front of me. A Ranger's Guile, a Coordinated Assault, a Singleton Elect Trickery to go along with 2 copies of Skullcrack, 2 copies of Peak Eruption, 2 copies of Shock, another Legion Loyalist, who I think he's going to bring into this matchup, 2 copies of Domri Rod, and 3 Fire Drink Crusaders. So I like Fire Drink in this matchup. Of course, just a 1 mana 2 power creature is quite good against Esper Control. How do you feel about Domri in this matchup?
Well, I mean, I have to like Domri against any Esper deck. Domri is really powerful. Shaheen does have more answers than normal. He has the 2 Heroes Downfalls in addition to the 4 Detention Spheres. But I think anything, like we saw Tom Ross yesterday play this against Jacob Wilson, who's playing straight blue-white. And we did see Tom bring in the Fire Drink Crusaders and the Domri Rods in the matchup. Domri actually won him the deciding game by creating an he got the Domri emblem off even after Jacob had taken care of all his threats.
Okay.
And so yeah, I do think he'll use Domri in the matchup, in addition to Satyr.
Okay, and then he's got that Singleton Legion Loyalist, which we saw in that last game. He really wanted to draw to be able to win the game. I'm not sure the games always play out that way, where Elspeth shows up, because Shaheen does have Blood Barons, and he'll probably have more removal after sideboard as well. So you're looking at just basically a 1/1 that has haste, a Raging Goblin. But there are situations where, as we saw in that last game, it can really be a big deal. So does he want the 4th one? We'll see. As I see, you've got Shaheen's sideboard in front of you.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing is that Ross will have fewer auras this game and more creatures. Looking at Shaheen's sideboard, he just turns to more removal spells. Remember, he's almost all removal spells, Planeswalkers, and Sweepers. So he can just kind of reposition which ones he wants. Because of the curve of Tom's deck, he's going to go for the cheapest things possible, I would think. So that means he has 3 Doom Blades in the sideboard. I'd have to think that he's playing all of the Doom Blades. Outside of that, there's not anything particularly exciting out of the board for him. He has Fiendslayer Paladin, which could also work. The First Strike lifelink actually seems like it would be pretty hard for Tom to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be using that too. Otherwise, not too much. Here's a 1-of Trading Post he could use that creates blockers, but I think more importantly, the discarding to gain life is very important from Trading Post. He does have some things in his deck, like Thoughtseize, which are particularly poor cards. Thoughtseize, Dissolve, Merciless Eviction, which I think he'll be boarding out.
Yeah, I don't even really like Aetherling very much in his deck after sideboard either.
He doesn't need Aetherling at all to win this. Really what he needs is Sphinx's Revelation to win.
That's his end game spell that he wants to resolve to attempt to win. So yeah, as you mentioned, just a lot more removal coming in on his end. And Fiendslayer Paladin actually make pretty tough for Ross to get off of the board. Not impossible, of course, because he does have Gore-Clan Rampager, so he can fight it appropriately. But Ross's goal here is to just get on the board quick. He was not incredibly fast out of the gates that go around, and Jace really caused some problems, which unsurprisingly, because Jace is great against this kind of deck.
Well, yeah, the Jace interaction with Supreme Verdict, nothing new, but it's still so powerful, especially because Tom's deck creates lots of 1/1s and 2/2s. He really has trouble with the Jace, and he has to commit a lot of creatures to kill the Jace. He either has to commit a lot of creatures or use a combat trick, which is actually an entire card. So Shaheen really can just keep making Jaces to force Tom to commit pretty hard into those Supreme Verdicts.
All right. Well, if you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Matthias Hunt with Osa Blebedovich here as well. Star City Games Open Series featuring the Invitational in Las Vegas. We're in round 12 of 16. The last round of our standard portion here. If you guys do want to join us on Twitter, we would love you to do that at SCG Live, hashtag SCGINVI for your tweets all weekend long. Don't forget, after we do conclude our Invitational here this round and then 4 rounds of Legacy, we'll have our top 8 that we can announce for you guys, and then we'll take a short break and Standard.
Yep, we'll go back to Standard. So it's kind of a sandwich format today. We start with Standard, then we'll do Legacy, and then we'll do Standard again, which is our Standard Open. Remember, at our Star City Invitational weekends, we also do have a Standard Open on Saturday and a Legacy Open on Sunday.
Yeah. If you guys missed our announcement that we did have, you can go to the homepage at StarCityGames.com. You can definitely check out the announcement from our president, Pete Hofferling, about all of the changes for quarter 2 and moving forward for 2014. We'll, of course, talk about those announcements as we do go today. But a lot of big news was announced yesterday, and if you missed it, you can definitely check it out there as Game 2 is underway with Arachnos Cackler. A good, fast start here from Ross.
Yeah, I mean, he boards in the Fire Drink Crusaders and has the Arachnos Cacklers because this is very important in this matchup, just to get as much damage, early damage, as he can.
It's pretty important, too, for Ross to just have that kind of draw where he has a bunch of 1-drops on turn 1 and 2, but he's got a madcap skills here, so he's opening himself up to a removal spell, but Cackler's going to come across for 5, put Soorani down to 15. As you see, Shaheen's going to take 2, so he's at 13 now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So Ross is pretty much playing Madcap skills as though it were just a lava spike. But it actually was a lava axe here. It did 5 damage. I mean, Ross is almost 100% that Shaheen's going to kill his creature, but Shaheen had to play a Shockland untapped in order to do it.
Ash Zealot is going to be cast. Devour Flesh is going to be cast in response, and Ash Zealot's going to come across and put Soorani down to 11. So he's certainly underneath the gun, but Ross does not have another land. Shaheen does draw a Doomblade for the turn, so he does have an answer to the 2/2 Haster.
Yeah, no help for Tom. He does have... See, so he has another Madcap skills, and looks like it might even be multiple Madcap skills right now. But because now Shaheen has mana up, he probably can't just Lava Axe. He's going to try for it, and then he's going to get blown out.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. It seems like a situation where he just doesn't have a follow-up creature to play. Is now Shaheen's going to play his 4th land and immediately slam down Jace Architect of Thought and turn over the top 3. It's a Verdict, a Temple of Silence, and an Island. But it's because Ross has so many Madcap skills in his hand that he just really didn't have much of a choice there.
Yeah, and the missed land drops are really hurting Tom. Shaheen, you saw, took the 2 lands, which is correct. He does have the 6th mana. He has at 6. He has an Elspeth already, and despite the fact that he's at 11, which is pretty good on Tom's part, he's under such a little amount of pressure now that he really can start to play very conservatively.
Ross has a Skylash in his hand, just drew a Burning Tree Emissary, so now you can actually deploy both of those threats, but wouldn't surprise you to see Soorani have, removal at this point, a Verdict. Elspeth is going to show up here in a moment, but Domri Red is actually the card that Ross is going to cast. He's going to tick it up.
Well, that gives Tom some action. The Domri Rod really does, because he has to expect that Shaheen has just a fistful of removal, and if he doesn't, Jace can go find some for him. But Shaheen does not have that much removal for Domri Rod, so this means it's possible that Tom could maybe ultimate the Domri Rod.
Yeah, it'll be tough, but it's certainly a game plan to put in place. As now there's a Doomblade to take care of that Burning Tree Emissary. Soorani's just going to keep moving along here. Planeswalker time and Elspeth.
Yeah, he played the Doomblade because he knew he was going to tap out this turn.
Yep. Jace's going to tick up. Elspeth's going to tick up. 3 soldiers. Not 4, Shaheen. Easy, easy, easy.
And, yeah, so Tom has... If he can defend this Elspeth, or this Domri from Elspeth tokens, then he could maybe ultimate. But he's very hard-pressed to do that.
Yeah. He does reveal, a Legion Loyalist off of the Domri. But he's pretty far behind right now is Ross, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to come back in this one. Shaheen is thumbing through a lot of cards in his hand. He already has 2 Planeswalkers in play that he can activate each turn as well. So it's going to be an uphill climb here for the Gruul Blitz player. There is the Loyalist, and just going to pass the turn back. You can see that Ross can tell he's in some serious trouble here.
Yeah,
right now.
He does have the blockers. Shaheen will go ahead and minus Jace. Just more draws. He even hits the Detention Sphere, so now Domri is no longer an out.
Yeah. Detention Sphere, Watery Grave, and a Godless Shrine. It'll be spell versus land. Soorani immediately takes the spell and puts the lands on the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because Detention Sphere completes the lock. You know, Domri's the only thing that he's remotely worried about now.
Fiendslayer Paladin right now here in Soorani's hand as well. So there is the Sphere to start things. There goes the Planeswalker, as you had mentioned. Is the follow-up play going to be that Fiendslayer Paladin?
Well, it's going to be 3 tokens for sure. It could be Fiendslayer. Fiendslayer's pretty safe because then he can start gaining life if he's worried that Tom could somehow burn him out.
There's the Godless Shrine in play tapped, and now there is the Fiendslayer. So Soorani uses all of his mana. Fantastic turn there for the Esper control player. Ross draws his card.
Yeah, so he still has a Madcap skills left. Nothing really to put on it.
Yeah, just passes back again. Pretty safe attack here from Shaheen. Fiendslayer Paladin and all 6 soldiers are going to come into play. So this is going to be an attack here for 8 with Ross at 17.
Yeah, more importantly, it gains Shaheen life.
Oh, Skull Crack. Okay. He's going to take down Jace.
All right, so Jace has gone from Skull Crack. So Shaheen won't gain life. However, Tom lost half his life total there.
Yeah. Which is obviously a big deal. Seeing what Tom is trying to set him up for is the big question. There's Elspeth again. Staring down lethal here in a bit.
Yeah, unless Tom boarded in one of his electrickeries, he most likely does not have an answer to the board right now.
Take a draw. It's a Temple of Abandon. You're a little late. So he takes a look at the top card, puts it on the bottom. He's going to play a Madcap Skills, pass the turn back. And as you see, Soorani's going to untap all those things. There's an ultimate, and that is going to do it. So Shaheen Soorani is going to defeat Thomas Ross. He's going to move on to 10-2. Will the Esper control player. Group Blitz moves down to 9-3. These guys are going to get ready for more legacy action, which means Shaheen will probably have to take his Detention Sphere from that deck and put it into his other deck.